Petunias have come a long way from your grandmother's garden. It's no wonder that they're one of the most popular annuals to utilize in the landscape. And they used to just come in like solid purples, pinks, whites, and yellows. But since then, they have continued to create all sorts of different versions. In fact, so from here over, we're looking at petunias. You can see that we've now got doubles. We've got really dark ones. This one here is kind of bordered with this lime green yellow around the edges, and it's just really attractive. We've also got a lot that are now striped as well. So petunias, one of the nice things about petunias is obviously when they're out in the landscape, they give you that nice little fragrance, kind of a sweet smell as you're walking around them. But typically, some of them are either mounding, but then we also have these wave petunias that they came out with that really spread out a lot more. So these are great in the landscape in a garden bed so that you can really fill an area with that annual color. So this particular one is just a wave petunia that is a white one here, and it's going to get about 30 inches in diameter and stay relatively short, whereas some of these others will get more of a mounding habit to them. Now, another popular line that's come out is the Supertunias, and those have been out for quite a while, and they're coming out with more and more colors. This particular one is called Persimmon here, and you can see how it has a nice kind of greenish yellow throat to it, and then sort of an apricot rim around the corolla there. The nice thing about the Supertunia series, though, is that they are self-cleaning, meaning you don't have to deadhead them. So some of the older petunias, you might remember that you would have to go around and remove those spent flowers to prevent them from producing seed. So a lot of times you would see the color, it would come on, and then it would sort of fade for a while, and if you didn't deadhead it, it would go into seed production, and then you would find little seedlings later on in your garden. So that's one thing that you don't have to worry about with the Supertunia series and some other petunias that have been more recently developed. Now, the other thing too is while a lot of petunias have bigger flowers on them, they are also getting smaller. So you might find some of these that are a little bit smaller here. So this one is very similar to this older one, this Royal Velvet here. This is a Supertunia Mini Vista, and you can see the flowers are about half the size of this one here. So they are getting just a little bit smaller, almost starting to look like Calibrachoas, and we're going to get to those here in a minute. Again, here is another one. This is called a Little Tunia. So again, a very striped one, kind of a bicolor there, another bicolor here. And then also this is another mini Supertunia. And so again, you can see this is a regular Supertunia. Here's a mini Supertunia. And then next to it here, we have Calibrachoas. And these are a different plant than petunias. And so you can see, although they look very similar, and in fact have a common name called million bells because of that bell-shaped flower like a petunia. And again, they just put profuse number of flowers all over them. But this is a fairly recent introduction. They were kind of introduced into the horticulture market in the 1990s and have only grown in popularity since. They have a much smaller flower than petunias, about a ½ inch in diameter. So you can see though the difference is while petunias originally had more of a solid color, of course, you know, some of the hybrids have really changed since then. The Calibrachoas really do have a mix and a range of color in each of their flowers and even on their plants in some cases. So here we've got several, and what's nice about them is they're just very dainty little flowers. Another benefit to having Calibrachoas is that they are all self-cleaning, so you don't have to worry about deadheading them when they're out in your garden. Now, as far as planting petunias or Calibrachoas, so petunias do really well as a bedding plant. They do like high organic material, so if you have heavy clay, you maybe want to make sure to amend that soil first with some organic matter, or perhaps just stick them in containers. They do really well in containers too. So if you are wanting to fill a landscape bed and really cover that space, you might look at something that is like a spreading petunia versus more of the mounding petunias that are available on the market. Calibrachoas, however, I would suggest maybe keeping those in a container just because they can be a little more sensitive to some of our soil conditions. They do really like a lot of good drainage and high organic matter again, but they can be a little more sensitive to that. So they work really well for containers. In fact, fact, you'll often see that you can buy hanging baskets full of these Calibrachoas, and they just make a beautiful display. The other thing to keep in mind with these is also the color. So if I'm looking for something to plant out in the landscape, you can see that these petunias come in both bright colors and also some really dark colors. And while this dark color might look nice on a bench, because a lot of times we're buying these, we're looking at them on a landscape bench, they might look nice. This dark color, or even some of the darker ones, might not look that good out in a large bed, because they're just going to look like shadows and voids in the landscape. And so it'll just kind of look like green and dark. You won't necessarily see that. So if you do really want to use some of these dark colors, go ahead and make sure to mix in some of these yellows or whites to kind of brighten it up and highlight some of those darker colors in the landscape. Or perhaps use these in containers or beds that are really up close to your house, where you're going to notice them a little more intimately than somewhere farther away. Stick with the bolder, brighter colors for something that's a large mass planting out in the landscape. Calibrachoas, like I said, they work really well in containers because all of these need good drainage, but especially the Calibrachoas. But because they have such a mix of colors, these work really nicely in those container mixes. And the other thing is you can kind of look at the different colors and pull out other combinations of flowers. So here you can see we have a yellow, we have some peach, we have some orange. And so you could go ahead and mix several of these different Calibrachoas together and giving you a nice combination in a container. And they also do even come in these doubles, like you can see right here. So that is what you'll probably be seeing out in the nurseries right now, are Petunias Calibrachoas and a lot of other annuals. So when you're headed out to the nursery, make sure you know what you're shopping for.
We hope you enjoyed this video as part of our Oklahoma Gardening YouTube channel. You can also find even more videos on the OK Gardening Classics YouTube channel. And join us on social media for great gardening tips, photos, and discussion.